Hi guys, this is Amaliia, and today we're going to be exploring a really important part of each of our identities. It's the culture. So the culture, it's amazing. It's really what an individual can explore about themselves and their family, and through connect to a bigger community than themselves, to their ancestry, family, and friends. Today, specifically, I'm going to be talking about my own two cultures. So my first culture would be the Ukrainian culture, and my second would be the American, as I'm an immigrant from Ukraine and I moved. But then this spring is gonna be 5 years. First of all, I was born 2009. I was born 2009, May 31st. That's my birthday, as you should know. I was born and I went to school in Ukraine for 6 grades, and then at the end of 6th grade, for the summer, I got here to the United States of America and landed in Miami. Then I got into a couple of states, then landed in California. That's where I am now. This is my 11th year, so I'm a junior in high school currently, and I basically have amazing, I'm so grateful to have this even amount of education, because if you think about it, I graduated 6 classes in Ukraine and I'm gonna graduate 6 classes in the United States of America, so I do personally know a lot about differences at schools and just a culture in general. Since I'm a student, the school culture is a big part of my life. So in Ukraine, we basically have, so how in America, there's the elementary school, it's one class basically who you spend your whole year with, but it rotates every year. So in Ukraine, the Ukrainian schools, so what it does, there's one class also for the year, but that class doesn't change ever unless people leave the school, or they just transfer schools, or just new people come in. If that doesn't happen, the class just stays the same throughout all 12 years, which is insane. But especially being a kid, I really connected to each of my classmates and the little community we had within the classroom. And it just really, when I changed schools, I moved within Ukraine. It was just both of the classes I was part of were so warm and kind of welcoming in a way. It was just such a warm feeling. You all grow up together. And I know in American schools you also grow up together, but there you just watch them every single day, and you basically become siblings in a way too, because you spend just so much time with them. But then here I noticed, especially coming here, I had a hard time kind of adjusting to this whole system where every single class you have different people basically, because I got here in middle school already for 7th grade. And it's just insane, because it was really intense going to school and coming back home, because there's so many just events happening, just because there's so many other different people in my classes, instead of just 40 kids every day, every single day throughout the school year. I met with hundreds of them, and during lunch it was even more. So it was definitely that school culture is just incredible, because it's so different, and it definitely impacted me, and I feel impacts a lot of kids based on where they go to school. And that also really builds culture, because I believe in Ukraine, it's since even the class system, the school system raises their kids like that, then they just grow up and they tend to be more, I wouldn't say closed off, but they tend to just take their time with their relationships and kind of hold on to relationships. Whereas I noticed here, since they have this insane crazy school system, and just talking to so many people, that's why I feel people are kind of forced in a way and pass away to interact with more people and kind of become social butterflies in a way, which definitely shows in the culture later on and in their adult life, because they just tend to be more kind of fluid in situations and in social situations, simply because they just grew up in such an environment. One of the big parts of my culture, of me combining my two cultures, was definitely a year after I immigrated here, because it was just insane, especially how language symbolized my thinking patterns and everything, because as we all may know, language really impacts the way you think. And Ukrainian, I mean, there are definitely some differences than kind of thinking mindset, which is I would describe personally, Ukrainian is more kind of fast-paced, more anxious about my day, doing this and this and this, staying on top of tasks and everything. But then American sense more it's also complaints. Oh yeah, Ukrainian would be more complaints, but then American it would still be complaints, right? But then it was just complaints in such a relaxed way. I noticed as my brain shifted more towards the English language in my mind, it's more, I just feel more relaxed. My thoughts are more relaxed in a way, and I feel there's not even enough vocabulary to describe like complex kind of like feelings of like worries. Transition phase was insane because especially learning language, I would start to figure Russian because I speak Russian with my family and I know both languages, but I just speak primarily Russian. So that transition phase where I would forget Russian, but then I tried to speak in English, but then because I was trying to speak so much in English, my Russian would be ruined, so I couldn't. There's a phase at which I was just stuttering like a lot in both languages, which felt really vulnerable because I couldn't really express my thoughts in any language basically. But that was actually the key. That was the transition phase to me finally being able to kind of like form my thoughts correctly and more fluidly in English. And that was actually harder in Russian a little bit, obviously, because I'm less exposed to it now, but definitely Russian became like more like switch on and off, but then English became more kind of in my thoughts and like more 24-hour thing that I do in my head. But that's the thing. So many people were asking me when I just immigrated and my accent was kind of obvious in the way I speak, because I would just pause to remember a word. It would definitely be like, oh, which language like are your thoughts in? And I would definitely say at that time it was both. Like I said, complaints would more be in Russian / Ukrainian, but then English, it would be more, especially in the beginning, it would be more schoolwork because that's where I learned the English. So it was kind of based on like the topics that I was most exposed to in that language. So English would be more like schoolwork and stuff. Like some of my friends, I would definitely say their name in English in my head, but then in Russian would be more towards my family, some activities I do that are like related to Russian speakers that I know. So that would definitely be really related to that. But then currently right now, I definitely do think in English. So before it was definitely switched, it was on and off. And it was kind of hard to explain at that time because I was kind of not realizing that as well. But it was definitely interesting. So I'd be like, I guess both, but right now I would definitely say English, because I keep asking myself that question that people would ask me like, oh, which language do I think within my mind now? And I keep asking myself that question now. I definitely can tell that it's more English now. But then that's the thing again, because I'm so like used to like complain, like those like parts of me that are like in Russian, like kind of complaining. It's usually in Russian. Like if I'm really like kind of bothered by something, I'm gonna be like, oh, like think of that in Russian, you know, and like some of the Ukrainian words would just usually come up, but you know, still, I definitely understand Ukrainian still, and it's definitely part of my culture. So I wouldn't say there's definitely a distinction there with the language I speak and my culture. One of the like humorous things, sarcasms, is definitely more like different cultural difference in Russian and English. Because sarcasm in like English is more like a humorous, but then Russian is more like deeper and like kind of dark humor, I would say. Even though like English is also dark humor, but sometimes it's more obvious like humor. That's why it's not always dark. So that's just a fun fact that I would tell you. Immigration, I would definitely say the two cultures blending in together definitely made me think of the world globally, and especially because I'm an immigrant, I'm kind of like passively forced to like think about like how other immigrants may be impacted. And it definitely, this blends of worlds and words, because I learned a new language, it definitely helps me to think globally and definitely about other cultures, especially in the United States of America and especially California, because there's just so many people here that are so many different backgrounds, and it's just truly amazing. Some of the advantages of having two different cultures is definitely that you can think of so many things that kind of, I can think of so many things that associate with myself. For example, like I have so much Ukrainian stuff, I have so much American stuff, and it's definitely amazing to say like I'm bilingual. That's so much like, it makes me feel like more complex, which is definitely makes me feel excited just about who I am, because I just have so many different things that I can associate to, like relate to, and find other people who are related to that as well. Some of the challenges of having two different cultures, especially I noticed that in the beginning when it was like blending, I definitely missed my other culture, especially, but that's like part of the immigration, I guess. But not being afraid to embrace one of the cultures, whether it's like that culture, and it's definitely struggling with stereotypes about both of the cultures really. And stereotypes will always be with whatever culture that is, it's always going to be a thing. So that's just really important to like think of like stereotypes as a separate thing, and be able to differentiate stereotypes with the actual culture that are in your mind, basically, not to get like embarrassed about some of the things of the culture, or like not take some of the things that other might say about your culture that it might feel personal, but they're not. They're just kind of enforcing. Other people usually love to enforce the stereotypes, so just be kind of aware of that. And it might become a challenge if like something really bothered you, but I feel like it's really important to keep your track of like, no, this is my culture and it's different from like a stereotype. The global mindset is definitely like there's so many other people with different cultures, and it's just amazing to have like multiple cultures because it just makes you so complex. But even if you do have one culture, you can find complexity in so many other things, really. Some of the stereotypes the Americans have about Eastern Europeans is definitely we're so grimy, we're so moody, whatever that's called. And it's so true. It's just like engraved in our mindsets because, and it shows in our face so much, especially like indicating other students in my school who have like kind of similar background to me, family-wise, if they don't know like the Russian language or like any other languages like that, you can still see on their faces because it's in their parents and it's like their family households, and it's like just so fascinating how I can detect people. So yeah, these are my two cultures that I want to share with you guys, some of the differences, some of the thoughts I noticed. Please comment your culture below, like what are your customs, any thoughts you want to share in the comments with me, or ask any questions. I would love to answer any of them. Please follow for more to stay on the topic of international relations and everything global, and to hear more about my stories. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Bye!